Hi there. I hope you're having a good week. Now, before we dive into the content for our second module, let's do a snappy recap. We're going to do a dozen or so of these because it's part of how I roll. In the previous week, or module, you'll recall that I made you 3 videos. The first was the opener for the entire course, as well as the first module, which pointed us to our first module thesis about faith as an episteme. The second outlined the syllabus as a whole and talked particularly about my hopes for this virtual classroom as a space of charity. The third, which was a bit denser than the other two, went into some depth with the readings from the first chapters of Garish and Frisk on faith, as well as with Isasi Diaz on knowledge. The third video asserted that faith as a whole comprises both credence, intellectual affirmation of a set of beliefs, and trust, the relational bond that believers experience, in our case, in Jesus. Like Aquinas, we who believe in Jesus can trust the proofs and promises of the early creeds. In a different way, like Luther and others, we can trust that Jesus has our backs, that he knows what's best for us in terms of a way to live faithfully in the world. And Isasi Diaz can tell us that an episteme, a mode of knowledge, is a way of understanding the world based on our experience. This is why I say faith is an episteme. Partly in light of what we've articulated about faith as an intellectual and effective quality and a way of being in the world, this second module's thesis is as follows, as you can see on the slide. Theology is a pilgrimage wherein believers use scripture and tradition in order to act in just and compassionate ways. More broadly, theology is a voyage of discovery, a specific ritual and social itinerary where believers form relationships, read and meditate on God's law, and use their understanding of God's laws based in their lived experience in order to act in ways that promote human flourishing. So today, we will talk about ways that we can use Augustine as an intro to Christian tradition, and Charles Fensham as a portal into the kind of human experience that promotes just and compassionate theological reflection. So, in light of all of that context and our current module thesis, we have 3 brief lecture goals. First, after interpreting some of the context of St. Augustine of Hippo, Doctor of the Church, you'll examine his discourse about signs and things in the first book of On Christian Doctrine. Second, you'll use that same context to investigate his assertions about unknown and ambiguous signs in books 2 and 3 of On Christian Doctrine, and we'll skip book 4 because that's about rhetoric. Third, you'll interpret South African and Canadian theologian Charles Fensham's discussion of Christian believers as monastic pilgrim stewards in the last chapter and postscript of his missiological text Emerging from the Dark Age Ahead. Then, after I help you tie those 3 somewhat disparate threads together, I will introduce you to your next 2 short assignments, which are roughly as follows. Please write me, first, a 300-word discussion post and 100-word reply to a classmate concerning both what Augustine says about signs and what you think about it. Second, please write me a 250-word post on Fensham's discourse about mission and pilgrimage, and a 100-word reply to a classmate's post, both articulating what Fensham says and your thoughts about that. I promise I will explain more about that at the end of this module. Everyone ready? Let's go.